To officially start our meeting, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we have Jade here today. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jade is Jason's son. Thanks for being here, and thanks for leading us. Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started this morning. We'll start right off with item number B on our agenda for the approval of regular session minutes of 6/12/2019. Board, I know you've had these minutes prior to this meeting and had a chance to review them and to comment on them. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and second. Judy, roll call.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Item number C, presentations. If you didn't know, the Board of Clermont County Commissioners has opened the floor to all the townships and the villages and the cities to come over and to use our video system here and to educate the public throughout the county on what goes on at their township. And this morning, we're very, very pleased to have Pierce Township represented here, and Nick Kelly is here, one of the elected trustees, to fill us in on the great things that are happening in Pierce Township. Nick, the floor is yours. Thank you.
I kind of try to keep this brief. I also have Loretta Roque, our administrator, and Bonnie Batchelor, my fellow trustee from Pierce, here today. So kind of like a high level, just kind of overview of Pierce Township, and when we're done, if anybody has any questions, or you guys can butt in if you have any questions while we're going here. But Pierce encompasses about 23.5 square miles on the southwest corner of Clermont. Right now, last census, we had a little under 15,000. We anticipate over 15,000 residents in the next census. That'll be coming out here soon. We have a kind of a charming mix of rural and residential, a little bit of commercial up on 125. So we have kind of a unique identity in Pierce. We have a lot of green areas, very close to East Fork. A lot of state parks, just a few minutes from downtown. So I think a lot of that is very advantageous for people who might want to move out from Hamilton County. Pierce Township is a great place to go. Within a few minutes of downtown, you have a lot of the wooded areas and a lot of the luxuries that come with being a little more spread out and a little more rural, but you're still really close to pretty much all the action. So we've seen a lot of interest in development recently in Pierce Township. To kind of help manage that, we've recently updated our PUD process, the process that we use to go through what developments we're going to allow. Otherwise, you can go under a typical residential building requirements. But if you want to get density and you want to do a neighborhood like Prestwood Place, which is going in now, or like Legendary Run that Bonnie was a part of that, you can kind of manage the aesthetic and the layout and things like that and make it into a really nice neighborhood. So we're trying to be selective and as responsible as we can with the development that does occur in Pierce, so that we can continue to maintain that identity and charm that we have in Pierce Township. A lot of woodland mound is in Pierce Township. You might not know that. We have a lot of parks. Our other trustee, Alan Freeman, and Bonnie have also worked on a grant for the park that we have coming up for the Locust Corner Park. That's going to allow us to do, I think, around $280,000 of park improvements there. So we're excited about that. We have a couple great golf courses in Pierce, Still Meadow and Legendary Run. Most of the vineyard is also in Pierce. You might not know that. But the cash registers in the front are in Hamilton, so they get all the traffic.
And the money.
Moving to the back.
We have a great police department, Chief Bachman, fire department with Chief Wright, and our service department, John Kohler. All very responsible. We've lost quite a bit of revenue over the last 10 years, I would say, with the loss of Beckjord Power Plant. And overall, I feel like everyone in the township, including department heads, have been very responsible to work within their budgets and to essentially stay very lean and mean. So they've done a great job with that. And we do have some development going on up on 125 we have relatively recently with the cinema and Kroger, and we expect and hope for more up there. I believe we're in the process of a 125 corridor study as well, looking at the potential for 125 and what we would possibly encourage in regards to further development up there. That's pretty much it. So just a few things going on in our township. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Or
What do you think's the big attraction to Pierce?
well, I would say it's kind of, again, the layout and the charm of the way the town, I mean, it's mostly a bedroom community. You have a little bit of commercial up on 125, so you do have access to some of the stores and hopefully more restaurants as time moves on, that kind of thing. And again, quick access to downtown. But you can go home, you can live in a quiet neighborhood. I feel like it's spread out and it's got just a really nice rural charm as well. So there's nothing real exciting as far as, wanting to really boost excessive development or anything, but more so just maintain, I think, what makes Pierce Township great and what its identity is.
Well, I think one of the things about the situation is that you have that touch to the Ohio River and the 52, corridor there to actually get to 275, but yet you go just the opposite direction to the north and you're right butted up against 125. So that's, where you're going to in Clermont County, those particular two routes pretty much get you there pretty quick because they're both connected right to 275.
Exactly.
So, you bet.
And I'm more on the northern end, so I can leave my house and be on the highway there at the 125 junction pretty quick. And if you're more on the southern end of the township, you hit 52. So. Anything else?
We feel a connection because my daughter lives there.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great.
Legendary Run on Highland Green.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Great.
I mean, we could try to do a resolution to move the cash register from Hamilton.
Maybe you can collaborate with the Hamilton County Commission. I'm sure that's not
Let's just move it anyway.
I know a couple of them that would make an appearance here for that one.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
All
Well,
right,
thanks,
thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Bonnie, anybody? Any other trustee? Bonnie, want to say anything?
No, I think Nick did a terrific job. I agree with him, we have that rural atmosphere, but 15 minutes, you're downtown to everything, to the ball game, right, Mr. Painter?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
Very nice area. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, we will move on the agenda. It's my understanding that we are due for a public hearing here at 10 o'clock. So I would say today is the date, time, and location for a public hearing on the annual tax budget, the 2020 tax budget in Clermont County. If anyone here is present, hasn't signed in at the door here, I would ask that you do so now. So if you haven't signed as an attendee, I'd like for you to do that. And Mary, you can start with an overview of the 2020 tax budget.
Good morning. I'm Mary Raines from the Office of Management and Budget, and this is the public hearing for the 2020 tax budget, or 2020 fiscal year for the commissioners. We have published the hearing notice in the Clermont Sun on June 6th. The draft of the tax budget in the format required by code has been available for public inspection since June 14th as required. And that document shows you by each fund the cash balances, the revenues and expenses, and gives a projection as well as 2 years prior actuals. Everything that's in there is set by code. This year we have 138 funds listed in the tax budget, with about 117 having actual activity expenses going out of it. The proposed tax budget as it is right now just shows the requests that have been submitted. We have not done any adjustments to the requests. This is being presented from the departments to say what they feel their needs are, as well as the mandates that they fall under. And next year is one of these unusual years. It happens every 11 years, where instead of 26 pay periods, there will be 27 for the county. So we have an extra $1.5 million roughly coming out of the county general fund cash balance that has been set aside for just such non-operating expenses. So since this is a tax budget, we look at the taxes that are required to operate the county. We have a 10 mil limit, the inside millage. The general fund has 2.1 million of that, or 2.1 mils of that. County capital fund, we dedicate 1 mil, and the park district has historically had 1/10 of a mil. That's a total of 3.2 of the inside millage, and then outside millage is the voted levies, and there's 6.6 mils there. We have the alcohol, drug addiction, and mental health services at 3/4, children's services at 8/10 of a mil, developmental disabilities at 3 1/4, and our senior services at 1.3, and the park district just recently had a voted levy of a 1/2 a mil. So right now the taxpayers pay 9.8 mils, it's hard to differentiate there, of their values to run the services of the county.
The 10 mil limit, is that just for inside?
The 10 mil is the inside millage.
Okay,
It
so
is
we're
the
only
county.
using 3.2 of the
We're
10.
using 3.2, but it's countywide, so other townships and municipalities also fall within that
Sure, within
10 mil
the 10.
limit. All right, so I'm going to jump into general fund, which is the main operating budget for the county's discretionary funds. It represents 20 of the 21 elected officials. The county engineer is the only one who is not covered under the county's general fund. And it provides all the mandated services, sheriff, jail, probation, the commissioner's office, the auditor, treasurer, recorder, the courts, the 911 and building inspection, and then a piece for health and human services, which basically is the veterans county share. This chart here shows the change in the property tax receipts over the years, and you'll see it drops down tremendously in 2012. That was triennial, and we saw the reduction basically because of the recession that we were in. 2018 was a triennial update, so we saw a 10.6% increase in the values that are there, and so we're going back to get back to the level we were before the recession. There'll be another revalue year in 2021, but the revalue years are the increases 2-3%, something like that, so it's much lower than the triennial update. General fund revenue trend here that shows you the various groupings that we categorize all the revenues into, and the permissive sales tax is our largest revenue source. And we'll see here that there is a drop from 2017 to 2018, and that was the impact of the change in the MCOs.
Mhm.
So we saw that drop off, and now we're getting back to a level that pretty flat, with a couple percent increase this year estimated, and another 2.5% for next year that we're looking at. And that does not include any of the internet sales changes that the new budget bill has been recommended to have. Charges for services is the next largest source, and that has things like the conveyance fees, the property transfers, the Board of Elections fees, comm center charges, passport fees. It's anything that any of the other elected officials are charging for their actual services. The conveyance fee being the largest issue in there, the auditor has provided that at a flat estimate, which is slightly lower than it was in 2018. Property taxes are seeing just a minor increase for basically new construction. There's not a lot going on in that. So we're looking at like an $88,000 increase from this year into next. Now, the big piece here with the changes is the intergovernmental revenues. We've included in that approximately $1.5 million for indigent defense going up to 100% reimbursement. We're hopeful. And the 1.5 is based on some of the requests from the Public Defender's Office for some changes, and we'll get into the expenditures later on. But in light of the expected reimbursements, he's asked for a little bit more money. And then also with the change in the indigent defense assigned counsel rates that are possible. The state changed their rates, and I don't think that we've done anything with it yet.
It hasn't
But
come.
if we do, in anticipation of that, some of the departments have put in some requests there. So by using those, we increased the intergovernmental by $1.5 million.
Just for those who are here in attendance, just Mary, if you would, just go back a second. If they didn't know, you talked about internet sales and proposed changes in the legislation, and now taxes aren't collected on internet sales if the actual product
If
doesn't.
they don't have a store within the state of
The state of Ohio.
Right.
And the change in legislation is to allow collection for
Right,
things
any
that are
sales
bought,
done here, right.
which would be a big change in how it currently is done. And then the other thing you talked about was the indigent defense. And so for those who are here, obviously you have a right to an attorney, and if you can't afford one will be appointed for you. And what that means is that the cost for that attorney is borne by the state, supposed to be 100% borne by the state. But the state has routinely not reimbursed counties for all the cost of that. And if I remember, our reimbursement went as low as 40.
It's gone as low as 39, 40%. And the statute allows for 50%, but I think we've only hit that once in the last 5 or 10 years. So it's based on how the state budgets their indigent defense monies. And then, of course, how many counties and what they were requesting to be reimbursed.
And so the new governor has made a commitment for indigent defense reimbursement. So that's where that revenue is being anticipated at.
Right. And they're recommending 100% reimbursement. So
Yeah, but
the
that's after
state's
2
taking full
years.
Right.
responsibility.
First year is not
Right, it's over a course of,
80%, I think.
21.
Yeah, 80% in the first year and 100% in the second.
We'll take it.
Just something you didn't know, that the state made a commitment to reimburse counties for that. And then as things do happen, the state says we don't have the funds to do that. So they don't make that full reimbursement, even though their commitment was to do so. So,
And the Constitution says that the state shall pay
right.
for indigent defense, but
thanks.
Yeah, I guess I've done this for a while, and I haven't done the presentation for a long time. And so anything that you want to nudge me,
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Great.
Doing great.
okay? All right, then another big one is our investment income. It's seeing a $550,000 increase expected for next year. Back in the day, investment income was way up there, $4 or $5 million. But getting up to $1 million in investment income revenues was a struggle. So it's good to see that that's starting to pick back up.
interest rates just haven't been what they were.
Right.
Thank goodness for short paper. What does it?
And general fund receives investment income from most funds that the county holds. There are certain ones that are grant-related or the statute requires that the investment income goes back to. But for the most part, we receive the investment income on, for example, water resources on their monies. So that helps tremendously there too. You'll see a little bump down there in transfers, and that's for the title fund surplus. We've been at 400,000 for several years, and this year and next they're hoping to give us another 100,000. So that's a nice little thing. We consider that as a operating money. We count on that. Excuse me. Licenses and permits, fines and forfeitures, I'm sorry. Those come in from the courts, and they've just pretty much been flat. They don't do a whole lot of movement in those. Licenses and permits are where you'll find the building permits. That's the biggest thing in there. They're looking at a little bit of a reduction this year, but then bouncing back up for next year. Down there at the other receipts, we're looking at 623,000 next year, and that is just miscellaneous income. Our leases with the One Stop, the Board of Education, insurance premium reimbursements that we charge back to other funds goes in there. So that is the 61,604,000 that you see up there. Non-operating 2.9 million is money that we don't really count on a ongoing basis. The biggest piece in there are anticipated advance repayments where general fund loans some of the smaller funds money throughout the year while they're waiting for grant reimbursements and so forth to come in. The other large one in that is for this year, we had a insurance claim that went over our deductible. So we'll be getting a couple $100,000 back from that. So that's down there in that non-operating. So you see that going up in grand total from 62.3 million down to up to $64.6 million next year. Now this slide here will show you, we're just strictly looking at 2020, and you'll see where permissive sales tax is 45% of the general fund. That's by far the largest source. And that varies 45, 46%, so it hasn't changed much. And in fact, none of the top 3 or 4 have changed much over the years. Charges for services is at 16% of the revenues. Property taxes at 14%, and intergovernmental jumped up from about 10% to 12% with that 1.5 million bump there. And then you see that the others, we rely on them. It's not to say that they're not important, but they're much smaller piece. So when the economy does go down, we get really impacted with that loss from sales tax. So in total, the $64.6 million that we're looking for next year.
And I think one of the pieces that this really shows that a lot of times, there's not a discussion about is that, permissive sales tax is why the county has to be proactive in ensuring that there is money on hand, because since that accounts for such a large portion of your general fund that, Lord help us if we ever had a real disaster here in Clermont County, but you can imagine, some of the disasters that we've seen nationwide if one of those affected one of the large sales areas that we have in Clermont County, for instance, obviously the Eastgate area, to where, that tax could quickly, dwindle. So you have to have money available to be able to protect against that,
So we look for a cash balance in general fund of about 1/3 of our expenses. Just a cushion. Now here we'll show the operating changes in general fund for the revenues, the operating revenues. And you see that little drop down there in 2009 of 8%. That was a little hard to stomach for a while. But we're climbing back up, and this year we look for about a 1.8% increase, and next year at 5.1. If we backed out that $1.5 million that we'd put in there for the indigent, that 5.1 goes down to about 2.5% increase.
Baby steps.
So we're taking baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting close to where we were once. All right, here we are at the general fund expenses. And
Did you do this one?
we break these down into the various program areas. General government consists of the auditor, treasurer, recorder, commissioner's staff, commissioner's offices, like HR, facilities, planning, and I guess that's about it. And then also some non-departmental things where we fund, like OSU Extension and things like that. So we have some of those in there. The increase in that is about $770,000 for next year. And a lot of this is annualized changes from this year to next. So some changes that happened during the year this year will be a full year budgeted next year. Also, in this program area, I have not pulled out the impact of that extra payroll. So within the $770,000, for example, in general government, about $226,000 of that is for the 27th payroll. So health and human services, as I said before, was veterans service, the TB clinic, the mandate that we have for children with medical handicaps, that's at a tenth of a mil. We have no option with that. That's billed to the county by the state, and we have to pay that. And the mandated share, which has been going down somewhat. So it has a little ups and downs in that one. Judicial services are, of course, all of our courts, clerk of courts, domestic, juvenile, and so forth.
And probation's in
And
there too.
probation is down in criminal justice.
Okay.
So it's got, it's actually just the court services, Court of Appeals that we have to pay is there, municipal court, and most of the prosecutor, except for his civil division, which is found up in the general government area. So of that $1.5 million increase in judicial, 418 is the 27th payroll. So that's a large chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal justice is the sheriff, the probations for both juvenile and adult, and then some of the municipal electronic monitoring and so forth. And that one, 716,000 of that almost $2 million increase is for the 27th payroll. But it also has some things in there, like the sheriff is requesting 8 additional COs to open south, to open up more beds for the jail. Juvenile court has got some changes happening with their reclaim, so that's shifting some expenses out of that grant into the general fund and basically increasing by one probation officer. Common pleas adult probation is going up. They're requesting a couple new probation officers actually yet this year. And then next year, a supervisor and a Community Corrections Act director, I guess is what they call it, for overseeing their grants, who will also can carry a caseload to help with the increased caseload that they're seeing over there. In that area also is a small piece, but the general fund provides local money to the sheriff's drug unit, and it's been held flat at $50,000 for many, many, many years. And they have requested again this year that it be up to $60,000. We held the line this year, but their grants are dwindling, and to have that process, they want a little bit more. They need a little more. The public safety area is the 911 comm center and building department and the coroner in that. The building department is requesting 4 additional positions. an inspector, a couple of permit central clerks, and an assistant director. Com Center, they have a lot of contracts and leases that have built-in increases in them. There are no increases in salaries for the 911 because their bargaining contract expires this year. So you won't see any increase there, whereas in criminal justice, they have a 2.5% bargaining unit increase built into their request. That brings down the operating to $63.1 million. However, if you back out the just under $1.5 million of the 27th payroll, we're down more to 61.8 in that neighborhood. So it's not as big of a jump as it actually appears in there. The non-operating, it's jumped up because of a $3 million transfer anticipated going into capital. We had planned for it this year, but because of projects not going on, it was postponed till next year. So that's where you'll see that. And also then we don't plan to advance any money to the health insurance fund. They seem to be doing okay. So that's been backed out. Anything else you want to go over on that one? No?
No, just a quick observation, you know, revenues projection look about 64, expenditures look about 69.
Well, when you really look at that, the bulk of the difference, when we get to the chart where we're looking at the draw on the cash balance, the draw on the cash balance is really from the non-operating one-time monies. It's the $3 million draw from the general fund for the capital projects and the $1.5 million for the extra payroll. So that's money that's not going to happen on a regular basis. So it's a planned draw on the fund balance, and it keeps us right at about a third of our expenses.
Okay.
Now this is just showing where the money goes. It kind of a visual shows you that almost 70% of our expenses are for public safety, the courts, and criminal justice. And again, that doesn't change a whole lot. Those are the big areas that cost the county most. And we don't see any decline in that at all. It's just going to keep up. General government, which is basically the administration piece of it, stays around 18%. So, but what you do see in here is, again, the sheriff has increased for his number of beds, and probation is increasing people. So, you know, those are still in there, but overall, when you're looking at the totals, it's still pretty much where it always goes. This is the one where it shows you the actual revenues in the lighter color and the disbursements in the darker blue. And then the line is showing the cash balance. And that's where you'll see cash balance expected to be at 24.9 at the end of this year, going down to 20.4 next year. And again, when you take into consideration those two big one-time draws, and that's essentially what you're looking at. So, we're not concerned at this point for any of that.
Okay.
Now here are some of the requests, and again, I can't stress this enough. This tax budget has just requests of the departments. It's not what's being recommended. There's no spending authority that's given with this tax budget. It's just showing what the needs of the departments are. So anything over $125,000 we've added here. And in these numbers, I have backed out the 27th payroll. So this is looking at what will be an ongoing cost So in the sheriff and the adult detention, the request for 8 new COs plus the jail population going up, the impact that'll have on the medical and the food contracts, their bargaining rate increase, and the local sheriff, the contract deputies too. When we add a deputy for a contract, the county is picking up half of that. So that's about $829,000 that would be on an ongoing basis. The public,
Sorry, this is additional right now.
yes, these are additions.
Okay.
The public defender is asking for about $791,000 net increase, and that's an additional 9 full-time equivalents due to their caseload and in anticipation of the increase in the reimbursement from the state. In that, this year they've had 2 part-times filling in for an FMLA. They're anticipating that one, those staying next year. But then in addition to that, they've requested like 4 additional attorneys, a social worker, investigator, and those kinds of things. If the reimbursement doesn't happen, then they know, but they just wanted to put that out there for the things that they feel that are needed to provide good reimbursement or good indigent defense.
Mary, are they still asking for any positions if they don't get that reimbursement?
The only thing that they're asking for is to keep that one additional one
Okay.
that was covering for the FMLA because their caseload has increased significantly. And it's not on here because it didn't
Right.
fall in that 125, but the prosecutor is also asking for an additional assistant. And again, it's because of the increase in the felony cases.
Okay, thank you.
And we're seeing that impact kind of across everybody. That's what's causing the increase to the courts, the probation, and all of it.
Right.
Juvenile and probate court increase is about $414,000, and they're adding a little over 3 FTEs. Some of that is the allocation of people where they had them allocated to another fund, and it's picking up there. It's also, as I mentioned earlier, the reclaim grant regulations are changing, and what they can charge to that grant has to move back into the general fund. They have in their budget, as well as the public defender has a 3% salary increase in his too. Juvenile and probate have a 3%, but they're continuing to request 6% increase for their detention workers, the ones who are juvenile equivalent of a corrections officer. I think that their starting salary is like $15.50 an hour right now, and that compares to $19.55 for a corrections officer this year. So they're looking for that to continue to be at a higher increase per year. And then they have their food and medical contract increases. The building inspection department going up about $317,000 for 4 new positions. And then they have some costs that are associated with that, plus some of their Enagog-related costs, some stuff, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And then Board of Elections is looking at a 3% increase for their staff, but it all goes up to $367,000 because it'll be a presidential year. So they look for everything to increase quite a bit. And we'll see ups and downs, peaks and valleys on that. And they take into consideration the worst case scenario of how many extra elections they'll have and voters and everything when they present that. And the requirement to the Board of Commissioners is to fund sufficient to run the elections. So, there's leeway in there. Common Pleas Court is basically in their probation department, $177,000 increase for the additional probation officers and the CCA director. And finally, the Department of Public Safety Services, which is our comm center, 911 center, is about $125,000. They're planning to be at full staff for 19 ERTs. They keep hoping. They have changed their allocation of the supervisors with the 911 fund, wireless fund. We were doing it 50-50, and they're shifting 5% extra over to the general fund. that's going to be up for discussion because it doesn't look like the wireless fund is having issues at this point, so we'll have to look at that. But then they do have tower rent and other contract increases that they just happen. So that takes care of general fund. That's, again, it's the biggest discretionary funds that the commissioners have to budget for. And then we get on to the other levies. The 1 mil property tax that we dedicate to the capital improvement fund. And this will fluctuate on what we need based on the county's capital plan. And that is currently being updated, so this just has some, it's the millage is basically the revenue that goes into there. This year there were some state monies for the voter equipment and the Sheriff Public Safety Grant and a Common Pleas Court Technology Grant, so there were a few state monies in there this year. But all in all, it's basically the property taxes. The plans that are in there right now are the engineer and juvenile court buildings, administration building parking, some roof replacements, sheriff's training facility, and some storm structures. But again, the capital plan is in the process of being updated, and this will change, I'm sure, before the end of the year. Next is our park district. And again, they had the 1/10 of a mil inside, and then they had a 1/2 of a mil voted that they began collections in 2017. And here you'll see a big spike. And basically what you're looking at there is transfers from their operating budget, their general fund, into their capital funds. So this is really double counting some of their revenues and expenses. So if you back that out, their disbursements for next year are going to be about 2.8 million and receipts at 2.7 million. So the 1.3 that they're looking at for a cash balance is a reasonable cash balance in there. So they move $400,000 in 2017 to their capital, $1.7 million last year in 2018, and $1.6 million they're anticipating this year, and then $800,000 next year. So you're going to see that both in disbursements and in the revenue. So we could back those out and have a more clear picture of what's coming in and out of the park district. All right, the alcohol, drug addiction, and mental health fund at 3/4 of a mil. That was an increase after 2016. They're just kind of holding things flat, both revenues and expense-wise. Most of their money, like about $600 of their expenses, are for services for their contract agencies. So it's pass-through money, more or less. Children's Services levy is 8/10 of a mil, and $1 million of that levy money is dedicated to juvenile court for their delinquent and unruly youth that are in their custody, with the rest being DJFS, Children's Protective Services funds. They've been holding pretty good at their $8.5 million level, both revenues and expenses. And we'll just, if they can continue that it's volatile with the number of youth that just keep coming within the care. It's tough. General fund does put some money towards the Children's Services Fund to assist. You see those monthly transfers of cash over to them. DD, the Developmental Disability Funds, are 3.25 mils for the property tax. And they're showing that they're going to spend down their money from $7.6 million balance this year down to $5.5 million next year. And They also, in addition to the levy monies, they get money from the state and federal government, somewhere around $1 million, $1.3 million. And then they get money from school districts as well for children who are in their school. Senior services is a fun one to look at. We contract with the Clermont Senior Services for the net value of the levy. So everything we take in, we spend. And then Senior Services provides a breakdown on their financial statements on how that money is going. All right. Here's one you like to see. We've got all the budgeted funds. And again, it's about 138 funds in here. And it's by fund group, so that general fund that you see there is not really just the county general fund. It includes the budget stabilization fund that currently has a balance of $5.3 million in it, and the sick and vacation liabilities funds. And that's where, when we have a high retirement that comes out, we look to balancing those liability funds to move into the general fund. It also included the Medicaid Transition Fund and the Environmental Reserve Fund, which was where we tracked the Seacoast expenses. The capital, discretionary capital fund is the investment opportunities, economic development fund, as well as the county capital fund that we just talked about a little bit ago. Then we run down to the special revenue funds. This one, it's a big number, you know, it rivals the general fund, but what you have to remember is most of these funds up here below the general fund are restricted. You can't access those for anything except for the purpose that they were established for. So the special revenue funds have the County Engineers MV&G Fund, DJFS Public Assistance Fund, Child Support, Real Estate Assessment, Law Library Title Administration, and all these little miscellaneous grant funds that we have out there. So that you'll see fluctuation in that, and a lot of them from the grants that go in and out, and their spending. They cannot take money out of any of the other funds, and we can't take their money for any other purpose. The enterprise funds are the water resources departments, and those are both their operating funds and their capital, their construction funds. And that always sees a fluctuation based on their planned construction. Outside agencies are the DD, developmental disabilities, mental health, park district, soil and water conservation district, solid waste district, and family and children first. Did I say park?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you see in there. And those, they have their own reporting requirements, they have their own boards, and we provide the appropriation budget. Internal service funds, these are the workers' comp fund, health insurance fund, and fleet and telecommunications. So internal service funds provide services to the other county departments and agencies out there. Money comes in, and they have to be self-sufficient, hopefully. When you look at the actual cash flow that you see on the tax budget document, you will see that fleet is looking for like an $88,000 deficit. So that's something we have to work on. The tax budget doesn't have to be balanced, it's showing a need. The appropriations, however, will need to be balanced. So we'll have to figure out what's going on there. So that's a red flag that's up there, and we'll have to see. But their rates the rates of the internal service funds are supposed to support them. We did some adjustments with the health insurance fund this year which seems to be working to provide a more stable cash flow for them. Workers' comp is fine. We keep getting reimbursements from the state where they've overcharged or whatever they're doing. So they
We're
seem-
safer than they anticipate.
We're safer, yes. Whole state is safer. So, and the telecommunications is where the telephone systems that operate throughout the county, the county offices are run through there. The special assessment debt and geo debt are just strictly that, and actually the one that's listed under the general obligation is really a special assessment for the Stone Lick Olive Branch Road. It was rolled into a general obligation back in 2003, I believe. So it's just kind of sitting out there. It will be paid off in 2023, I think. And then the OPWC debt is for the engineers for his roads and bridges. Now, when you look at the expenses on there, the expense trend, again, you've got to look at this, and as general fund had 27th payroll, any of the other funds that have people in them have an extra payroll too. So in total, the 27th payroll is going to run somewhere around $3.4 million to the county. And that excludes general health, public health district, because you do not budget for the public health. They're a separate entity. So on the expenses, we went over on each one of these type funds. So this is just kind of another look at them.
Summary.
Okay.
And then here is the cash summary. So it's got each fund type. And again, the general fund is not just the general fund, it's the general fund type. And it shows what the estimated balance will be at the end of this year. And then the revenues, expenses, and then the draw on the fund balances. The general fund will still have the budget stabilization fund staying at 5.3, and the liability funds for sick and vacation will be roughly $840,000. So the draw from the general fund is mostly due to those one-time expenses. The county capital draw, you're looking at basically timing of capital plans and the way the projects are projected to go. Special revenue funds are pretty much balanced, coming in and out, but you will see, there's about, the real estate assessment fund is like $627,000 draw on their fund. The title fund is going to be pulling down $1.1 million, but again, 500 of that is coming into the county's general fund. The engineer, on the other hand, for the MB&G fund is looking to add about $975,000, and that's due to the added license fee. Their budget isn't showing yet all their capital projects. They usually don't get into those until even sometimes after the first of the year. So that may be changing. The enterprise fund's got a $7 million draw. 4.9 of that is for their construction funds, and the remaining is $2 million from operating. And so they'll be taking a look at their revenue structure to see, what needs to be done to make up the difference in that draw for their operating. The outside agencies drawing down is about 2.1 is from DD. So that's, they're just looking at what they expect to need. And I don't know if they're going out for new levies coming up, but they're getting some draws on their fund balance over the past couple of years, so.
Mary, do you know if those
keep an eye on
those
it.
are operating or are those one-time?
I
all operating?
talked to DD, and they didn't give me any other specific information, so I don't know.
Okay.
They have two funds basically in there. Their main fund, which is where almost everything goes, and then they shift money out of that into a residential services fund for assisted living type things. The internal services fund, as I said, health insurance fund balance is showing an increase. So they'll be able to pay part of their advances back, but that is not in here yet. So it's a pretty healthy increase. And the other funds are drawing on their balances for their programs. And geo debt, yes, it will be paid in 2023. And OPWC debts go much longer than I'm going to be here.
True.
Not in life, Judy, just here.
Here.
And that's
Wishful
it.
thinking.
Good,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's an awful lot of numbers.
It's a lot of numbers. And,
Thanks for being on top of all of that.
well,
Tell you not.
it's just the start, you know. We'll take a look back at this stuff in probably October, and that's when, you know, this will give dialogue, get some dialogue started with the departments to see exactly what's in their budgets, you know, what we've got. We'll have more time to get some good revenue numbers in, and so we'll start.
And to be clear on that, just like you said when you started your presentation, this represents what all the different departments have went through and, and listed as their
Asks.
wants and needs and asks.
Right, right. And in this, in the general fund, and there are only about 6 departments, 6 or 7 that put salary actions in there. Most of them just say that whatever the commissioners can fund, they would like to have that funded in their departments too. But a few of them put, you know, 3%, and one department put in a 5% increase, and then the 6% for the juvenile detention workers.
It starts the process, then the negotiations begin.
And negotiations begin October. Stay tuned.
Deadline. Okay, thank you.
Judy, do we need proponent and opponent?
Sure.
Okay. You've heard you've heard all the details. Do we have anyone in the audience today that would like to give proponent testimony about this budgetary ask? Seeing none, is there anyone that would like to give opponent testimony today? And is there anyone that would like to comment about budgetary information that you've heard about today?
We did not receive any emails to the budget email account. I've not received any phone calls or letters or anything in the mail, and nobody has forwarded anything to me. So I'm assuming that there's been no feedback from.
No further correspondence
Of course.
associated with the matter? Okay.
Commissioner, Tim Maloney did point out, and we know it in our heads, we just don't have it included in the tax budget. We are facing multiple capital cases here in Clermont County, and those are very expensive in the court area as well as in the sheriff's area. So what we will do in those cases, like we have done in the past, that's why our general fund has a fund balance for odd things that don't continue on an ongoing basis. We will utilize those funds going into next year to cover these capital case expenses.
We do have some degree
Some
of
level.
expenses included in the court, in the common pleas court for the murder trials that they expect to come up. And there's also a few odds and ends for scanning, microfilming that are within department requests that come out of one-time monies.
And Jim, since you're here, am I remiss, or is it correct that currently this is one of the few times in Clermont County that we've had 3, I believe it's 3 capital cases, is that correct? Okay.
The big part of it as well will come in if the juries need to be sequestered. Because that then requires a deputy or 2, even on weekends, to stay with them all the time.
Okay.
So we'll have to see.
Okay. That's an unfortunate circumstance, no question.
And that is not in the budget at this point in time because it'll have to be addressed when they know something.
If there's nothing else to come before this public hearing, then I'll deem this public hearing now closed. Thanks, Mary. You did a Excellent job.
Thank you, Mary.
Excellent.
And we'll move on the agenda to public participation. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to participate in the meeting this morning? We welcome your comments, and you can do so by coming forward and asking to be recognized. Seeing none, we'll move from public participation and we'll move right to the consent agenda. Board, a consent agenda has been prepared for you. I know you've had it in advance. Are there any items that you would like removed from the consent agenda for further conversation or consideration?
None.
None.
None? Then I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as it has been presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Then we'll move right to the non-consent agenda. Starts on page 9, I believe. With item number 18, Board of County Commissioners Resolution number 095 for the payment of bills. It's a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners adopt resolution number 095-19, resolving to approve payment and vendors in the amount of $2,398,980.87 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice reports for checks dated June 19, 2019, BCC directed prepaid invoice reports, vendor invoice list, items paid by fund and check date range report, or procurement card transaction reports presented by the auditor on June 17, 2019, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants for the same pursuant to section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved, and we've received a second. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Item number 19.
Item number 19 is a memorandum of understanding between the Board of Health and Clermont County. This is similar to what we've done with the building inspection EnerGov program with some of the townships. So this will be the one for the Board of Health who uses the program. So it's a request to authorize David Painter, President of the Board, to execute the memorandum of understanding between the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Health. This is to allow access and usage to the EnerGov Permit and Land Management Solution software program, as well as their IG Workforce, which is their field product. They will become now another affiliated organization. They will abide by the agreement that we have with Tyler that was ratified by the board on October 19th of 2016 and subsequently amended in 2017, 18, and 19. They will reimburse the participatory costs for utilization of the named users, as well as the annual support cost and professional services and other fees as are described in the MOU. So it's the same thing. They received a certain number of named users. If they need additional, they will pay for them, and they will pay a proportionate share of the annual fee.
Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of number 19. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Been moved, and we've received a second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. Item number 20.
Good morning.
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 Agenda item number 20 is the 911 roof replacement. I believe, Commissioners, do you want me to read this and then will we table it?
It's your choice.
Yeah, you can go ahead and read it.
Okay, no problem. It's a recommendation of myself, Wade Grabowski, Director of Clermont County Facilities Management, with the concurrence of Mr. Thomas J. Igle, County Administrator, to execute contract for minor public improvement projects by and between the Board of Commissioners of Clermont County, Ohio, and Garland, DBS Inc., out of Cleveland, Ohio, for the EMA 911 Communications Center Roof Replacement Project, in concert with their proposal number 25-OH-170946, which is being provided according to the pricing established under the Master Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchasing Agreement with Cobb County, Georgia, and U.S. Communities. In as more fully described in the scope of services identified in Exhibit A, attached thereto and made a part thereof, in an amount not to exceed $173,283, with said services to be completed within 120 days of the contractor's receipt of the signed contract and notice to proceed from the Clermont County Facilities Management Department pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and contingent upon the release of the required purchase order in concert with requisition number 3703-00 dated 5/30/2019 relative thereto.
Commissioners, I'm asking that the board considering tabling this project, and I'll ask Wade to talk a little bit about the 911 roof, but I think facilities needs to go back and gather some additional information, Wade, on the project.
We do. We have some clarifications, if you will, that need to be done on the actual scope of services that didn't coordinate or coincide with the actual project work scope. I'll have that done almost immediately.
And what's our current condition of this roof?
Currently, we are experiencing roof leaks right now, currently at the ISD help desk section. My biggest concern is this roof is 21 years old. It was obviously replaced when I was still here back in 1996, 97. The roof was probably, EPDM rubber typically comes with a 15-year warranty. At the time, they were going through some hostility with Goodyear Corporation, who makes the product. Unfortunately, we got some of that product, so it didn't last the 20 years, 25 years that we do. We've been patching this just about every rainfall. The problem we have right now is the rubber, or the EPDM rubber that is on the roof when we put the cleanser on, so the glue will accept it. The cleanser actually is getting into the seams or underneath the lap sealant and causing even further damage. So we are up there literally after every rainfall. So the condition of the roof is very compromised at this point.
Can we get the additional information ready for next week?
I already made a phone call, and that information should be on my desk when I return in 15 minutes.
And just for the board's edification, I had reviewed this item, obviously, as everybody does on the agenda, and checked into it a little further. My initial review on it, I had questions about the fact that we had identified it as a minor public improvement when it was a complete roof replacement of the 911 center. And then in further reading the scope of the project, there was an inconsistency between the roof that's there and how they want it replaced is with EPDM, which is a rubber product, and the specifications were written for a mopped bituminous asphalt roof. So I had made some questions about that, and that was the reason why the tabling discussion has come forward. Typically, minor improvement projects are left for those things that are under that threshold for bid. This obviously is not one. This is a $173,000 project. But because of its urgency, we didn't want to make sure if we drop back and we bid this, in a complete package, we're going to be 45 days down the road, and we might not have 45 days. So the agreement here has been that we'll redo this and make it correct for presentation to the board.
Yes.
So I'd make a motion that we table this item.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wade.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Item number 21.
Good morning. Item 21 is the recommendation to award the bid for project number RS0719 relative to the 2019 road resurfacing program located in various townships pursuant to the specifications therefore to Barrett Paving Materials of Middletown, Ohio for the lowest and best bid received on 5/23/19 in the amount of $2,282,185.84. And to execute the contract relative thereto pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, and a forestated award of bid contingent upon the release of the required purchase order in concert with rec number 3710-00 dated 5/31/2019 relative thereto. Want to point out that the contract this year, it includes 11 roads that will be repaired and resurfaced, totaling about 16 miles. There'll be 8 additional roads that will be repaired, not resurfaced this year, and that totals about 20 miles. This is about double what we normally do, thanks to the addition of the $5 permissive fee. We know that wasn't a decision this board took lightly, but it's appreciated, so we're putting those funds to good use.
And how many townships are involved?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we've got up north, we're down south. I'm looking at my list here real quick. We're in Goshen, we're in Bethel, Tate, piers, so it looks like it's pretty well spread out throughout the county.
Fantastic. And one of the things, just to discuss that for a minute, fix the roads, fixing the roads. One of the things that starts immediately when you start to do a project like this is I just ask that everyone in Clermont County be patient, be safe when you drive. We're going to have a lot of roads that are going to be impacted by this. People obviously can get very impatient, but if we're going to fix the roads, then we're going to have to, understand that progress does come, at a price.
So this is county roads.
These are county roads, correct?
Yep. We're not doing a joint bid with, okay.
Yep.
That was my confusion.
So you've heard the reading of item number 21 for a road surfacing program located in various townships. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and received a second. Any further conversation? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Item number 22.
22 is a recommendation to execute record plat number 629-3147 for the following subdivision located in Miami Township, and to further execute the performance and maintenance bond as well as the performance bond for sidewalks as surety for same relative to the construction of the below streets listed. These are streets in the Mills Miami subdivision section 2. Performance bond of $42,000, maintenance bond $10,000. The performance bond for sidewalks is $49,600. This is for 0.094 miles of McMills Drive and 0.140 miles of West Mills Drive.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 22. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and received a second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item 23. Thank you, Jeremy.
Gary Bryant, Court Administrator with Juvenile Court. Recommendation of Judge James Shriver, Clermont County Juvenile Court, with the concurrence of Thomas Eigel, County Administrator, to authorize David Painter, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute an Ohio Department of Youth Service Subsidy Juvenile Court Grant Agreement and Funding Application by and between the Clermont County Board of County Commissioners and the State of Ohio Department of Youth Services, located in Columbus, for on behalf of the Clermont County Juvenile Court for the Reclaim Ohio Grant Subsidy Program in the amount of $953,353.76. The Youth Services Grant Subsidy Program in the amount of $268,005, and the competitive reclaim allocation for the amount of $50,000 for a total availability of funding, therefore, of $1,271,358.76 for fiscal year 2020, which starts July 1st of 19, running through June 30th of 2020. For the biennial period commencing July 1st of 19 and ending June 30th of 21, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein. This is our reclaim funding. It funds about 70% of our probation department. The general fund funds about 20%, and then we have other federal funding that funds about 10%. This agreement is for 2 years, but the financial part of it is only for 1 year.
Thank you, Gary. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 23. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and received a second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Item number 24.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary. Welcome back.
Item 24 is a request to increase the annual appropriation for 2019 and authorize the auditor to record the same in the ledger, and it's for $15,095.62 for a retirement payout for the Sheriff's Civil Division, and then that's in general fund, and then $300,000 for the Child Support Enforcement Fund, other expenses, and that's to cover administrative costs that they do a shared cost.
Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 24. Do I have a motion for approval?
Make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and received a second. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. That brings us to the end of our agenda items there. Do we have any additions to the agenda at this point, Tom?
Yes, sir.
None? Then I'll move to item H. I'm requesting a executive session pursuant to section 121.22 G3 of the Ohio Revised Code to confer with the prosecuting attorney regarding pending or imminent litigation. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second the motion?
Been moved and second. Roll call, Judy?
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes, we will move to executive session. We will return and conduct further business. We are back from executive session. No decisions were made, and we will move on with our agenda. I will go back and ask, are there any additions to the agenda, Tom, that we need to address?
Yes, sir.
All right. Then I'll move to item number I for county staff elected official discussion. Do we have any elected official or staff discussions today?
None.
And then I'll move to board member comments. Board, do you have any comments about the proceedings today? I thought Pierce did an excellent job in their description of what's going on there.
Yep.
Had great attendance. Like to thank Loretta Roque and Nick for being here, and
Bonnie Batchelor.
Bonnie Batchelor. Really appreciate them taking time out of their schedule to come and talk to us.
And the budget presentation by Mary Raines was.
Mary Raines did an excellent
Excellent
job
job.
on
She
that.
did.
Very difficult topic.
You know, great clarification for people who are watching is that, the budgetary process starts off with all the different directors and all the department managers and elected officials, sending in their budgetary needs or wants for the year of what they would like to have funded, and then the process goes from there as far as whittling it down.
Creating a balanced budget.
Yep. And Clermont County has always had a balanced budget.
Yes.
Just to throw that out there. If there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and a second's been received. Roll call, Judy?
Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes. That concludes our meeting for the 19th of June, 2019. Thank you for watching, and thank those who came in attendance. And all those out there, how about a big woo-hoo for a little bit of sunshine? What do you think about that?
Don't jinx it.
Thank you.